It's time to cook with Susan Beck. Here I am again, ready to show you another one of my favorite Halloween treats. I posted last week these cute little witches hats and witches broomsticks, made pretty much with all things that you just pre-purchased in the grocery store. Great little project that young children can all make. Today we'll make a recipe though that takes a little more work and a little more effort, but oh, it is so worth it. These buttery rich cookies are going to look like candy corn when they are done. We'll be dyeing our batter yellow and orange to go with the white original batter to make these triple layered cookies that are sure to please both the taste buds and the eye. So we are going to be creaming together our butter and sugar to begin with. Now, oftentimes I say it's okay to choose between butter and margarine, but not for these. I would really recommend that you stick with the butter. That's what gives them that super rich flavor. So 3 sticks of butter, no less. Like I said, very, very rich cookies. All right, I have 1.5 cups of sugar, and we are going to cream that butter and sugar together. We want to run our mixer for probably like 5 minutes to really get the whipping action going on, and so that butter and sugar is really creamed together well and becomes light and airy. Bringing down that butter and mixing it in with our granulated white sugar. While that's heating for several minutes, here's a closer look at last week's Halloween goodies, witches hats and witches broomsticks. It hasn't been quite 5 minutes, but I am going to stop and stir just to be sure none of the butter is on the bottom and not mixing in with the sugar. And then we'll turn it back on for just a couple more minutes here to get that good whipped mixture. And now it's time for our remaining ingredients. We're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to put the salt in first, just so that my measuring spoon isn't full of a liquid, causing my salt to stick. Little trick. All right, 1 teaspoon of baking soda is next, along with 3 cups of flour. I'm going to just put part of that in and start my mixer up slowly to avoid that big cloud of dust that you can sometimes get. And then we'll just add in the rest of those 3 cups of flour. It's just a nice basic sugar cookie dough. So if it wasn't Halloween, you could just make it like this, and you could even frost these when you were done. Just a little bit. And our batter is all coming together nicely there. Let's remove that dough from the beater. And now I'm going to remove this because we need to divide our dough up for the 3 different colors that we are going to be making. Again, corn candy when you buy it in the store is usually, if you don't buy the harvest mix, orange and yellow and white. So I want to look at my batter here and take out of here about half of the batter. Now the half that remains in this pan is going to be dyed orange. That'll be the base, be the color that we have the most. All right, I'm just eyeballing it. If you wanted to be really technical about it, you could get your kitchen scale out and take a look at the actual weights. So since I have this large portion in my bowl already, I'm going to go ahead and put the batter attachment back on, and I'm going to mix this orange color right in the mixer. I have these new food gel colors that I've only used a couple times. I went to the store to replace my food coloring because I was out of red a while back, and they didn't have anything except these, and I decided to give them a try, and you know, I kind of like them. So we're going to put in a couple drips here of red and a couple of yellow. Adding a little more yellow and a little more red. Oh, that really is a nice orange color of dough. So I'm just going to set my orange to the side for a moment, and then I'm going to take that other half, which is still white, and we want to take 1/3 of this and keep it white, and the other 2/3 of this half, and we're going to turn that yellow. Now I'm going to just stir this by hand this time so that I don't have to worry about cleaning my batter out of this big mixing bowl or getting any of that red dye that happens to still be on my paddle attachment mixed in, because I want this just to be yellow and not orange. And you could really do all of it by hand. That would not be a problem. It's a pretty sturdy batter. You even knead it with your hands instead of using a spoon. I'm going to add just a little more yellow so that it doesn't look quite as light in color. I want it to really be a drastic difference between the white that we're saving for the tops of our corn candy, or candy corn. You know, I grew up calling them corn candy my whole life. And then as an adult, I heard them called candy corn, and I'm like, candy corn? But we always had corn candy. So hey, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's an Iowa thing to say the name in reverse. Okay, we've got a pretty nice yellow color going on right here. So I'm going to clean away all of my ingredients in mixing bowl and show you how to put together 3 different colors. All right, this is going to look much more complicated when you see the finished cookies than it really is. I'm going to show you how easy it is to put together this 3-layered cookie. So our orange is our thickest layer, and we are going to make an 8-inch log out of this. I even have a ruler because it helps if they're all truly the same size, all 3 colors. So I'm right around 8 inches right there, and I'm going to just kind of try to roll that together pretty well. All right, I'm going to set that one to the side. Now I am going to make an 8-inch roll of this yellow dough, but it won't be quite as fat a log because we only kept 2/3 of the batter, 2/3 of that half of the batter. Yeah, just redoing that math in my head. Yeah, 2/6 of the batter was made into yellow, which is technically 1/3 if I reduce my fractions. So that will fit nicely on top of that. But you'll notice that these are going to get to be a narrow end. Maybe I'll set it up this direction here. Okay, our white is next. Our white batter, we didn't do anything to those. This dough, let's knead that together a little bit. It seems a little crumblier, probably because it didn't get worked as much when we, these other ones had the dye added and got beat up a lot more. All right, got my ruler here again. Oh, I'm only at 7 inches, so I need to roll it out a little bit more until I'm at 8 inches. It might be a little short still compared to those other ones. I want it to fit end to end. So let's get our bowl out of the way so you can see what I have here. And I now have the dough all stacked with 3 colors, kind of making a triangular shape. I think we need a closer. Here are 3 logs, approximately 8 inches long, stacked together. But if we look at the end, we can see how we're going to get that triangular shape of a candy corn. I want to be sure that these are actually going to stick together so that when we go to cut them, they're not going to separate into 3 separate, like a tiny little white cookie and a yellow cookie and then an orange cookie. So I'm just kind of working those seams together so that I really have one chunk of dough. Now this next step is important. These have to chill for 4 hours. That's another thing that makes this recipe not necessarily hard to make, but definitely more time consuming than my earlier little Halloween treats. I like to get out some saran wrap, cling wrap, plastic wrap, whatever you'd like to call it, and wrap this up. Got my end a little wrinkled over here. Straighten it back out again. Okay, and again, I want to be sure that I'm maintaining that triangular look to these cookies. That the bottom should be wider than the top. So as I get it back on the cling wrap, I'm just gonna rework that just a little bit. And then I'm gonna just fold this all over. I don't want my dough to dry out. That's the reason for the saran wrap. And then this is just going to go and sit on my refrigerator shelf. 4 hours, quite a while. You could even leave it overnight and make them the next day. Well, it's been 4 hours, and about 15 minutes ago, I turned my oven on to preheat to 350 degrees. Now you can tell that this is much firmer than it was previously when we rolled it up. So let's just take this plastic wrap off. And again, we've got that triangular shape, and we're going to cut 1/4-inch pieces to make our cookies. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? White, yellow, and orange. You don't want to cut them too thin, or it's easy for them to fall apart. And we are going to be putting them on a greased cookie sheet. Sorry, an ungreased cookie sheet. And we really don't need to grease it. It wouldn't hurt if you did, because there's so much butter in this dough that these are just not going to stick to my pan, especially with this parchment paper that I love to use when I make cookies because of the easy cleanup. Now I mentioned cutting these to 1/4-inch. Even more important really probably than the thickness of the cookie is that they're all very similar in thickness so that they all cook at the same rate. I'm probably going to be able to put, I would say, just 9 of these cookies on a cookie sheet. So I'm going to stick this one in the oven, and then we'll start cutting some more. Well, I'm setting my timer here for 10 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes is about how long these should take to cook. While those are in the oven, I'm going to get another pan ready to go. All right, there is our 9th one that we'll put onto this parchment paper. And we shall cook those too. I'm going to go ahead and put those into the oven as the others finish cooking. Another little trick that will be beneficial is putting this unused cookie dough back into my plastic wrap, and I'm just going to store this in the fridge while my first 2 sheets of cookies are baking. Then when those are finished and cooled and off the trays, I will get this out again. But keeping this firm makes it a lot easier to cut and keeps that dough together, and you'll just have much better results. The cookies have been in the oven for just over 10 minutes. The recipe says 10 to 12 minutes, and I'm going to say they're not quite ready to come out yet. They're pretty soft. We want to have them just a little sturdier when we remove them from the pan. I like to let them sit for a little bit before I try to remove them from the pan. Notice that the edges are just slightly golden. We don't want to over bake them, but we do want them to hold together. Now that they are cool, I'm going to move them to a brown paper bag. I like to rip open my grocery bags and use the inside as a place to let them sit. You can see where I had set one earlier, and it helps to absorb some of the grease. Well, our first 2 pans of cookies are done, so we're going to unwrap our dough and cut up the rest of it. Again, cutting it in evenly sliced pieces. Well, let's give this cookie a try. I just love a good sugar cookie. And these are just extremely cute at the same time. The buttery flavor of these is incredible. Got a little bit of a crunch to them, and I think you will just enjoy these as well and find that they're so easy to make, even though they look a little more complicated than you might think. So happy Halloween, enjoy these and my other Halloween snacks that I posted recently. The link is below, and if you're enjoying my recipes, be sure to subscribe.